Hi there. This is an absolutely magnificent trap in the electrifying Ragozin variation of the Queen's Gambit declined. It's called the Chernev Ragozin. I had hoped to play this variation with black last night in the national quarter-finals, but my opponent opened with knight f3 and I ended up suffering a crushing defeat, which seems to have ended my chances of qualifying for the semi-finals, which I have managed to do for the past 3 years. Never mind, chess is about getting knocked down and then getting back up again and living to fight another day. We have d4, d5, c4, the Queen's Gambit, e6, orthodox defense, knight f3, knight f6, and bishop g5. Bishop b4 and knight c3. So bishop b4 check, knight c3 interposes. We've entered into the Ragozin variation of the Queen's Gambit declined. When black plays d takes on c4, which is the Vienna line of the Ragozin, allowing e4 by white, black plays c5, hitting at the center, and very exciting lines after the move e4. E4 to e5, tremendous stuff, but white can also play bishop takes c4. In fact, that's even more popular. It looks a slightly quieter line, but this is also explosive. Black takes c takes on d4, and after knight takes on d4, Queen a5, logical, hitting the knight now on c3. Well, this is a very topical and theoretical line here. The top players in the world have played it, and indeed Kasparov and Kramnik have played this position with the white pieces, and they've both withdrawn the bishop from g5 back to d2. Also interesting is the line that was played by Ponomariev and Anish Giri. Bishop takes on f6, allowing the capture here on c3. So after bishop takes f6, bishop takes c3 check, b takes c3, queen takes c3. It looks fantastic here for black, does it not? King f1, queen gets more material, queen takes on c4. It's check again, and the bishop is also hanging on f6. The king moves over to g1, so white's not going to be able to castle, and black seems to be having a good time. However, it's not so simple, because if black captures g takes on f6, then rook c1 actually looks winning for white. The queen is hanging, it's under attack, as is the bishop behind the queen. So that bishop on f6 is immune for capture, at least temporarily. What here can black play? Well, if black played a move like knight to d7, looking logical, now the rook defends the bishop and the knight hits the bishop on f6, the game would probably go bishop takes g7, rook g8, and then after rook c1 hitting the queen and maybe queen a2, knight b5 looks pretty good again for white. The knight is heading for c7, probably winning here for white. So in this position, knight d7 doesn't work. Maybe bishop d7 is black's best try. Also possible is castles, and that's the move in the trap here. After castles, white's going to continue queen g4, an immediate mate threat on g7. So black's going to have to play g6. And now the queen's going to come round the other way. The queen moves over to f4. The queen's heading for h6 with a mate threat on g7. So if knight d7 looks a good try by black, immediately threatening to take the bishop, avoiding any mates. But e5 reinstates the mate threat, because if knight takes on f6, knight takes f6, e takes f6, the queen again is heading for h6 with mate on g7. So the king's going to slide over to h8 to allow rook g8. And now white continues rook c1 hitting the queen. And up to this point, black's more or less been hanging on. And black can hang on with a move queen b4, with the idea of when the rook moves on f8, the queen's going to get to f8 and stop any mate threats. If instead a move like queen d5, then we have a phenomenal continuation. Queen h6 threatens mate. That's going to be defended with rook g8. And now the knight does a nifty maneuver, backs off to f3, but it's clearly heading for g5 with mate on h7. It looks as if black can stop this with queen h5. However, after queen h5, what a lovely queen sack now. Knight to g5, and it's threatening knight taking on f7 mate. Well, if the rook slides over to defend, then queen g7 is mate, and if black exchanges queens, queen takes h6, we've got a beautiful mate. Knight takes on f7, checkmate. So this has been a trap in the Ragozin of the Queen's Gambit declined. It's called the Chernev Ragozin. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.